Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Doctor Who, as well as the latest episode of Orphan Black. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you don't want to hear what I had to say about this week's episode of Doctor Who, you can skip to what I had to say about this week's episode of Orphan Black. But the first thing I want to talk about is this week's episode of Doctor Who, a phenomenally good episode. Holy crap. Like, obviously, that ending and everything, but obviously got to work our way. Like, from beginning to end, this was a phenomenal episode trying to figure everything out and everything. Obviously, the basic premise of this is that basically this is all a trial run that the Doctor's trying to do, trying to test out whether Missy's really good or not, trying to, like, give her a chance to prove how good she is. Obviously, Bill's super against it and everything, which is, like, understandable, because she's like, yeah, Missy scares me. It's like, yeah, Missy kind of being who she is, who she has been in the past, also kind of makes you go, yeah, it's understandable why you think she's scary. I mean, you know, I do appreciate that line of like Bill being like, oh wait, so you Time Lords are kind of just like whatever when it comes to you're very fluid with this whole gender situation. It's like, oh yes, we're like the most civilized civilization out there that's ever existed, and we're like billion years above your whole like gender problems and stuff like that, and all these stereotypes. We're well above that, and like they're so insignificant at this point. And she's like, oh, yeah, you know, yeah, like you're so civilized and everything, but you still refer to yourself as Time Lords. And he's like, yeah, shut up. But even then, it's also Missy stealing the show at the beginning of the episode, be like coming out the TARDIS being like, I am Doctor Who, wink, kind of like nudging, and almost like literally constantly like almost like berating Bill and Nardo, kind of treating them like, yeah, they're the help. It's like that. No, like what does he call you? His accomplice, his companions and stuff like that. Ew. It's just kind of like they're nothing to her and everything. It's just like, yeah, you're just kind of the pets that he brings along and everything. And even at one point, even referring to them as disposables. I forgot what she referred to Bill as, but she was kind of referring to Nardo as like the comic relief. It's just like, oh yeah, here to be awesome heroes and save the day. It's just like, I really appreciate you like doing this, Missy, kind of playing it up. Even kind of messing with Bill at one point, be like, oh yeah, I'm like his oldest friend. I know his real name. Being truthful, because like Missy is one of the few people in existence that know the Doctor's real name. Just kept teasing me like, oh yeah, his name is Doctor. And Bill's like, wait, your name isn't Doctor Who, is it? And even later on, he's like, I'm Doctor. This is the Doctor, and I'm Doctor Who. And Nardo's like, your name isn't really Doctor Who, is it? I love it. But obviously, that's just a small part of this episode. The big premise of the episode being they're on this ship and everything. It's kind of like a colony ship. And I mean, for one, the whole situation with the blue dude and Bill, because it's like, oh, they're coming, but they're only coming after humans, and Bill's the only human here. I was like, okay, Bill gets shot. I was like, okay, what we're going to find out is it's some kind of like projection or something. The Doctor did something like while he was standing in front of the dude trying to calm him down and everything. It's like, oh, no, that's not the case. That really was Bill, and she got shot. But she's not dead. They end up taking her away because they're like, oh, we'll repair her and everything. But an interesting thing, because the ship, it was going into like a black hole, but then the thrusters kind of kicked in and everything was reversed. And I was like, okay, I get it now. So what it's happening is, it's like in my mind, I was like, okay, so is it some weird thing where it's like that part of the ship is on the other side of the black hole, while the ship, that other side that Bill as well as the others are on, is on the other side of the black hole. That's what I was thinking, but then it's like, I don't think it would work like that. You know, I'm not good with all the science and stuff like that. I'm sure they probably get sucked into like oblivion, into nothingness. I would assume that's what happens when we get sucked into a black hole. I don't know. I'm not smart. But nevertheless, it turns out a very interesting aspect is they're not that the ship, part of the ship where Missy, Nardo, the blue dude, and the Doctor is on the other side of the wormhole. Is that it's not wormhole, black hole. It's the fact is that it's because they're close. Because apparently, I don't know. Like I said, not a sciencey dude. Did not know gravity really affected time like that. But I guess it's when you break everything down, it's like, yeah, it makes sense that it works like that. Nonetheless, because they're closer to the black hole and the gravity that is pulling them in, time moves extremely slowly. While the side that Bill and the rest of the other people people are in moves extremely fast. There's even a point where, I mean, not extremely fast, but normal speed. There's even a point where you see the clock at the top. It's only been 2 days. Obviously, the rest of the time, hours, minutes, and seconds. But here it's been like over 365,000 days. Like to the point, like even they break it down, like Bill has been on the bottom of the ship for like years waiting for the doctor to come and rescue her. And it was just fascinating to me because they were constantly jumping back and forth between the two, to the point that like, the dude who was helping Bill out named Mr. Razor was actually got the camera, like he's got a whole camera set up and everything, and it looks like they're frozen, but they're moving so slow that basically even moving from one place to another, look like even taking a few steps would take weeks. There's even a point where like the doctor's like throwing up like the sonic wrenches, the sonic screwdriver, I'm messing up all over the place, throwing up the sonic screwdriver as a means of being like, oh yeah, like, Bill's like, oh, look at him, he's about to go into a lengthy explanation, and it's just like, to me, that was so beautifully done in that sense. So obviously we find out more also that this is all about humans performing an exodus. The reason why there's no one else around the crew, the reason why, and the doctor said at the beginning, is like, oh yeah, your crew members, the 20 you set off to turn on the boosters to pull away from the black hole, yeah, you'll never see them again. It's because time works that way, because it's so slow up there. The moment they went to the bottom, time was moving normally. I don't think it's moving acceleratedly. I think it is purely just moving at normal time. Basically, all the other people, even the people who came and got Bill and everything, they're the descendants. Like, it's been centuries downstairs, in a sense of like that much time has passed by. I mean, I don't know centuries, but I mean, it's definitely been a very long time that people have been born and died. So those 20 people that he knew that sent down there, like all the people he knew on that ship, the reason why he hasn't been able to find them is because they're not alive anymore. They're this long descendants are out there living their lives, but basically they're slowly dying because the ship isn't strong enough to survive this whole situation, because so much time has passed. It's not affecting the top of the ship because time is moving so slow there, so the breakdown of the ship over all these years hasn't really fully taken effect. And it's so mind-blowing. It's so cool that like it's like that it's like that. It's like time is moving at a stable form here, but at the top of the ship it's like moving so slow. It's so good and so beautifully crafted. I just think that's so amazing. I'm literally losing my shit over that. That's just amazing to me. But enough about that. Because of that, it's like, okay, we need to repair people and make it so that this whole situation, the whole like healing people and everything, like they have to go through procedures. They need it to be made stronger so they're able to go to the top of the ship and kind of take reins of the ship. But it's like they won't be able to survive the trip. I'm guessing the whole reason why they're saying behind that is the fact is because they are humans, they have normal human lifespans, and the fact is that time moves differently. It would take them past their own normal lifespans to get to the top of the ship. Different. I mean, Razor kept warning like, oh, there's something else there, but it's most likely like the moment you try to climb higher and higher, time starts moving differently. So the amount of time it would probably take to get to the top would probably take years, and most of those people probably died along the way, not unless something else happened and actually killed them, especially with the whole Razor storyline, but I'll get to that soon enough. But yeah, I mean, and it's just like, I mean, at least that's my thought and like kind of explanation about the whole thing. I also appreciate one conversation. I kind of want to throw it in there, more sillier side of the episode. It's like Nardo's like, the doctor's like, okay, Nardo, you come with me. Don't worry about the computer stuff. Leave that to Missy. And he's like, no, but I'm the computer guy. And he's like, no, but she's cleverer than you. And he's like, well, more evil. And she's like, same thing. The doctor's like, no, it's not. She's like, you got to admit, it's a little bit of the same thing. So, I mean, this entire time, Bill's thinking she's getting help, but then Razor kind of betrays her. It's like, oh, you're going to have to go through the procedure and everything. It's like, oh man. It's like, he's like, no, I'm doing this for you. You'll be better. You'll be stronger. You'll be able to make this trip, the Exodus and everything. I was like, man, like this is like, obviously it's like a whole mad scientist situation of like these procedures being performed on these people. They want to die afterwards, but it's like, yeah, they're slowly dying anyway. So this is a means of making sure that they go, like they survive and everything. Then Razor ends up going up to where Missy is and is talking to her. He's like, oh, don't we know each other? I was like, what the hell is this about? I was like, wait, like I started slowly piecing together. I was like, wait a minute, you're not telling me that. No. He can't be like, is he like, oh, you should know me? I'm like, we've met before. She's like, I've never been here before. I was like, what does that mean? Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't tell me. It's like, is it a situation of like, he's a different version of you? Which I was kind of close to it, but I was thinking like, oh man, he's a you that's lived this all before or something like that. Which technically, I guess he has. Considering the fact is, it's revealed, oh, Razor is actually the master. I was like, what? I was like, shut your face. Because at first I didn't recognize him because it's been years since he was the master. The last time he was the master was season 4? I think that's the last time that he was the master. So I wasn't familiar with the face. I was like, oh, wow. And which immediately my brain goes, what, doesn't that create a whole paradox situation? But then I was like, oh, shut up, Michael. Let's not forget the 50th year anniversary thing happened. The Dr. 10 and 11 met. So shut up. I mean, technically 10, 11, and which one's the War Doctor? The War Doctor technically counts as 6, doesn't he? So, I mean, there's that whole situation. But it's like, dude, that was so good. And then you find out, like, oh, what this all is? Like, this is Missy's past. She just doesn't remember it, which is understandable. I think even for the Doctor, certain things about his own past are, like, you live long enough, then it's a situation of, like, hey, like, you tend to forget things when you live. I mean, you like normal humans forget things over time. Can you imagine living as long as they do and trying to remember every aspect of your life? So obviously it's something that she didn't remember. But because the twist is, I was like, the moment like they showed it, like I took time to look at, especially when you kind of get in the final product. I'm like, and I figured it out just when the Doctor did. I was like, Cybermen, this is their birth. This is their this is where it started. It isn't an exodus. It's a genesis. This is where they gave birth. This is where the master gave birth to the Cybermen. So it's like, dude, that blew my mind. I was like, and sadly, we have Bill being turned into one. It's like, dude, like, obviously, as we know, things never really work out for the companions in a positive way. This is the second time this has happened. Let's not forget let's not forget it technically happened with Clara twice, because there was a version of Clara, like, when the Doctor originally met her in season 7. Obviously, he never met her face to face, but she was inside of a Dalek, and then she got put inside of a Dalek again in season 9. Interestingly enough, associated with Missy as well. So it's like, man, that's second time he's got a companion kind of turned into like probably one of the worst killing machines out there. You know, first being a Dalek, probably right afterwards being a Cyberman. But that was crazy to me. It's like, dude, that was just such a good twist that I didn't see coming. Like I said, I saw the pieces there, but specifically it being the master, I was thinking like, you know, some other version of her, like either before or after the master. It's kind of where my mind was going, but didn't click in my head that it'd be the master exactly, because he was saying all this stuff about like, oh yeah, like you should know me and everything, like you've been here before. I was like, well, this is some time travel stuff, and it turned out to be the case. So I'm very, like, next week is, in fact, the season finale, which kind of catch me off guard. I thought it'd be at least one more episode to the season finale. Nevertheless. But this is definitely, it's going to be a phenomenal episode. Obviously, you have Bill stuck inside of being a Cyberman. You had, like, you know, because the Doctor's going to feel responsible for it because the fact didn't matter. I mean, once again, he doesn't remember the whole Clara situation for him, so this is like a first time. Like, I mean, it's not the first time a companion's been in a terrible situation, but it's the first time to his mind that this is happening to someone that he cares about. Especially because it's like Bill keeps saying, I waited for you. And it's like, because that's what kept her going all those years. It was like, I was waiting for you. And it's like, dude. And also because the whole situation is like, because the fact is the Doctor wanted to believe in Missy, because it's like Missy is his oldest friend and he wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, because it's like he does kind of want things to be like they were, because the fact of the matter is he's lonely, considering the fact is him and Missy are the only ones of their kind. Now, I think it's not even just being Time Lords, but being who they are personality-wise. It's like, for one, that's like his oldest, best friend in the world. Of course, he'd want to make things work out. It's like, yeah, we've had our differences in the past, but this could be a good chance. Like, if I can get her to change, we could be together. You know, things won't have to be as lonely. Like, because, you know, because, I mean, when you actually break it down very psychologically, like, the Doctor's always getting new companions because he doesn't like being alone. No matter how much he wants to press it and be like, no, I can't be around anybody. It's like he can't help but be surrounded by people because it's very lonely being who he is. He can surround himself and like, oh, I can dive into history and stuff like that. I can go anywhere at any point in time in this wonderful TARDIS of mine, but that gets lonely after a time. And it's just like, that's why he latches onto his companions as hard as he does. So that's why it's very sad when you actually break it down like that. So obviously he's going to try and do whatever he can to save Bill. But I mean, going back to it, like, that's why he wanted so hard for things to work out with Missy. And it's like, even Nardo's making fun of him, like, holy crap, are you showing emotion? Holy crap, let me take a selfie of this. This has got to be a moment I keep. And so for him to strive that hard, and the thing is, like, it's definitely going to be interesting going forward of like, how will this go? How will this turn out? Because for the Master, this is all about ensuring his future. He's like, I don't like the way my future is going. So, hey, let's remedy this situation. So it seems like him and Missy might be joining sides. Maybe Missy pulls a twist like, oh, I will working with you. Psych. Nope. I'm on a new path. I'm a new person now. And it's like, if it works like that, it'll be awesome, but it's hard to say whether it will or not. Once again, it's not like Missy hasn't turned her back on a doctor before in the past. Especially, let's not forget the intro to the episode, which seems like that's going to be the part, probably the tail end of the season finale. As at the beginning, we saw the doctor regenerating. Note, though, his hair was longer, but then again, maybe that has something to do with the whole situation. Like, maybe he ends up moving at a different part of the colony ship, and so he ages a little bit more, so that's why his hair is longer. But I've kind of alluded to it at the very beginning of the season. I already knew that was happening. Just because I saw this whole thing, I caught the title of one of the Graham Norton things, and it was like, oh yeah, Peter Capaldi on White, on leaving Doctor Who. It was like from the very beginning, and I even saw it in like one of the trailers for the season, and it kind of got spoiled on me. I think the particular moment because it was the moment he was faking it during the whole Monk situation of like, oh no, like Bill shot him, and he was going to regenerate. That was the moment. So I'm going ahead and saying that now because of the whole situation. So it's already set in stone, like he is going to regenerate. And so, which is sad because every time the Doctor regenerates, it is technically him dying because that version of him will never exist. Yes, certain, obviously things pass on, but it's like this version of this Doctor will never be, the next Doctor will not be him. It won't be the same person that Bill's come to know over just a little bit of time. So, and you hear him screaming no. So maybe it's because it's like he hasn't quite saved Bill yet, and it's time to regenerate, or just the fact that like any other Doctor, they don't want to go yet. So, like I said, next week is the season finale. It's going to be phenomenal. I know it. I'm very interested to see how this whole thing goes out. I'm hoping on everything that Missy does do the right thing at the end. Maybe we have a situation of her sacrificing herself because maybe she wants to, for once in her life, do the right thing by her best friend. It's like, do something that'll make him proud of her. That's at least what I'm hoping, but we will just kind of have to wait and see in that department. And also how he's going to deal with the whole Cybermen situation too. And now that I think about it, it's actually kind of interesting. I brought it up with the whole Clara situation or the whole Daleks and everything. It's like he met the creator of the Daleks and now he's kind of meeting the creator of the Cybermen, like two of his biggest enemies. It's kind of interesting when it's working out like that. Kind of seeing their birthplace and stuff like that. It's just kind of interesting when you like think about it like that. So it makes you wonder, how's he going to handle that as well? Like dealing with the Cybermen situation. How will he reverse the whole situation that's going with Bill? I don't think it's going to be a time travel thing. This might, in fact, I brought it up earlier, but I felt like it was kind of just, no, like, cause the Doctor referenced it during the Monk episode of like, oh, he got that picture of Bill's mom and like did not realize that doing that small thing for her would have the ramifications, well, not ramifications, but the serendipitous outcome of like, oh yeah, basically because of those pictures, Bill is now going to save the world. So what if we end up in turn making it so that maybe that the Doctor didn't really do it. Maybe the future Doctor sent it to the past Doctor. And he's like, oh, I did this for whatever frivolous reason just to, make things work out. So maybe that's where that is. Like, that's kind of been my thought from the very beginning, that he wanted to do one last thing before, like, turning into becoming a new Doctor. That's what I was always thinking, but that whole situation made me think otherwise. So, I mean, but I could be completely wrong on that, so. And now moving on to this week's episode of Orphan Black, a fantastic episode. Story did not go the way I thought it would. Obviously, the big focus of this episode is Alison, because basically Alison's having almost an existential crisis. Because for her, and it's something that's kind of come up a lot, like the fact of the matter is every one of the other sisters kind of have their own place. Helena and Sarah are kind of special because the whole being able to give birth and everything. But Casima's the super smart one. It's like, where does Alison fall into? She's just like a soccer mom. She's just kind of like the nobody of the group. I mean, and I kind of brought this up earlier in the season. I mean, it's kind of like their staple. The Hendersons are kind of the fuck ups of the group. That they can't. There's always trouble rearing its ugly head associated with that family every season. And so for Alison, it's like, I'm going to take back control of my life. She starts kind of taking some pills and stuff like that. I mean, because like for the longest time, becoming this whole clone world has thrown her life into a spiral. She inadvertently killed like her best friend Ainsley just because she's like, oh, I thought you were my monitor. Turns out that's not the case. I just was super suspicious of you, and it turns out, I mean, what makes matters worse is because the person that was her monitor was a person that she loved, Donnie. So it just kind of, I mean, it's actually, when you actually break it down, I mean, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, like, I don't think I ever really thought about that. Like, everyone's significant other was their monitor. Like, obviously Delphine and Cosima were like the way they were, but Beth had Paul, but even then it's like, well, Paul was kind of deep covered too, so that's the whole thing in its entirety. But it's just it's so sad because for Alison, she feels like she doesn't have a purpose. She feels like she doesn't bring anything to the table, and it's like, yeah, I mean, because like the fact of the matter is they wouldn't have been able to get to where they are without Alison or Donnie's help. I mean, for one, like I've said it before, hands down, probably my favorite Paradise show, just because they are such screw ups. Like they have like the most like funny and fucked up storylines, and just season after season. But at the same time, it's like if it weren't for Alison, a lot of things wouldn't have worked out. Like the whole S and Sarah and Kira situation back in season 1 wouldn't have worked out if it wasn't for Alison. Alison kind of fronted the money for the whole operation and everything. So, like she has played her part, but it's like, it's like her life was one thing. She thought it was this. I mean, especially because we got a flashback kind of showing her kind of being thrown in the deep end. She met Beth, and we also saw her first meeting with Cosima. Interesting that the first time she met Cosima, she was high on mushrooms because Ainsley and Chad were like, oh yeah, let's do mushrooms. So that was interesting. And even Cosima was like, wait, are you high right now? Because like your eyes are like super like messed up. She's like, oh, okay. Very interesting meeting. But basically, it's all about her trying to take back control over her life, but still kind of spiraling out of control, not really finding her place. She tries to take back the whole fair festival, whatever the case may be that they're working on from Nona Walker. Interestingly enough, I can't remember her character's name, but she kind of played like the prominent, like recurring Emmy character from, I think it was like season 3 on in Haven. I was like, recognizable actors. I kind of do that all the time. Which, if you've listened to these long enough, that's kind of my thing. But I was like, that's cool. But nevertheless, I was actually scared at that moment. Like she dumped all those pills in the bottle. I was like, oh, she's gonna drink that. It's like, oh, now she's passing on to Nona. I was like, isn't that gonna suck if you end up inadvertently killing her because maybe the pills will be too much for her system and she'll end up dying? It's like, then that'd be kind of another death when you like. I mean, the whole Ainsley situation gets even more tragic because like Chad comes back into town and everything. And he's like, yeah, do you ever feel like it's our fault? She's like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, because we had that affair because we slept together. Like Ainsley kicked me out, and then because I wasn't there, no one was there to save her from this whole accident situation. So now on top of that, Alison's got to deal with the guilt over that. Then meeting up with Ramon again, he pops up again, which he promises like, yo, I didn't screw you over, because if I screwed you over, would I really come back to your territory? So it seems like it probably really was like Justin Chapman's character. I always forget the actor's name, but I think his name was Kellerman. Is like he's the one that set them up with this whole situation. Is like, because he saw you as an easy martyr, he knew he could manipulate you and be like, oh yeah, you've taken over Ramon's operation. Well, I mean, truth be told, this Ramon could have been lying, but it did seem like he was a little more sincere. But just it sucks that just things were playing out like that. And like I said, problems got heated between her and Donnie, because Donnie's like, yo, the Neolution cops are at our freaking house looking for any evidence dealing with our drug dealing connections and stuff like that, because this is Rachel trying to put pressure on them because of the whole like, oh yeah, there's still some buttons we can press to get information about where Helena is, because they need Helena, because they're even saying like, oh, Helena's babies might be even more valuable than Kira. I mean, because it's something I completely, even though I recently rewatched the seasons, I completely let it slip. Like, oh yeah, this isn't the first instance of a like, you know, miracle baby healing. It's like, yeah, Kira did when she got hit by the car. They referenced that in this episode. I was like, right. It's like, how the fuck did I forget that when I literally rewatched the entire series before the season premiere? It's like, I don't know why that didn't click in my head. But so it's like, I guess it's also because there's two of them, plus the babies were healed in such a short amount of time too. So it's like, oh, they might be even more valuable than Kira, which then kind of puts things in perspective. Like, it seems like Rachel doesn't really necessarily care about Kira. It seems more like, oh, like she's just a means to an end to this whole situation. But things really kind of spiraled out of control when Donnie ended up drinking that. I felt so bad for him, and he ended up passing out with this that kilt up, and all the people were like, oh my goodness. And it's like Felix says a line of like, it's always the people you never guess that have one. So I was like, does he have a piercing on his like testicles or his penis or something like that? Like, what does that mean? Or is that supposed to represent the fact that it's like, oh, he like has a humongous penis. Like, that's what I'm also possibly interpreting that, but nevertheless. And then everyone's kind of like, especially the one's like, oh, I guess like Donnie's an alcoholic too. And Allison's like, you shut your filthy mouth. Don't you talk about my Donnie like that. I'm like, oh, that's so adorable, Allison. And side note too, Allison was pissed about the whole like, Donnie leaving her behind situation and stuff like that. But, also like, she's like, how dare you be hypocritical? Yes, I have my problems. I drink and I have pills and stuff like that. But it's like, don't act like you're saints. The fact of the matter is, yes, I have my demons and stuff like that. And yes, it does hurt. The fact is that you're shunning me and everything. But most of you SOBs are my clients. You got pills and crap from me. So you got the nerve to sit up here and judge me, you bastards. And I was like, that is true. Like the whole, like her trying to be the head of the committee and stuff like that. And it's like, back in season 3, was that? Yeah. So it's kind of, I mean, of course, because it deals with the whole drug dealing situation, but it's like, it's so sucky. And then a lot of them kind of looked around and everything were just kind of uncomfortable and everything. Like, good, you deserve to be uncomfortable for being douchebags. And then I love, like, it's just like, the fact of the matter is, I do have a place in this whole situation. It's much bigger than this area because it was something her and Ainsley were having a conversation about because, like, this isn't her first existential crisis. She's had multiple, and one particular was a flashback because she's like, she even was talking to Donnie. She's like, the fact that you're so normal and everything, and sometimes the way you look at me, it's almost like everything in our life is a lie. And I'm like, oh god, nice. But Ainsley was kind of like, oh yeah, if you want to be more than this place, like, you know, their community and stuff, like their cul-de-sac and everything, you want to be more than that, you want to be more than this neighborhood, then you go out there and find your place and everything. And it's like, she's like, I found amongst my sisterhood that you will never know about and you will never understand. And Felix is like, thank yourselves that you won't, and closes the curtains, and you see him just dragging Donnie's body underneath it. So. But I appreciate this episode too because Alison had her badass moment. She's like, you know what? I'm going to take charge. I'm going to start being useful. Which is like, once again, it's like, you were never useless, Alison. She felt like it, but it's sad that she did. But she shows up and Rachel's like, yo, this is the deal. Donnie killed Leaky. One of the other bodies that you might be trying to look for is a Castor clone, the one that Helena killed. What this all means is, if you don't back down, this will come out, and yes, you can arrest us and everything, but it will go back to you. Because let's not forget, Rachel was supposed to kill Leaky, but at the same time, it will go back to him because it's like, no, like, Alison and them can be like, oh, well, we were killed by him. We killed him on orders by Rachel or something like that. At least that's what I'm getting the feeling like Alison was kind of alluding to. But nevertheless, either way you break it, it's like, this will kind of cause like a big scene, and Westmoreland isn't going to want all this attention, especially because, you know, if it falls back on Rachel because she's supposed to be at the top of this, and if she's at the top of the pyramid, and, you know, everything will kind of come tumbling down behind her. So it's like, it just complicates things, especially for the new and improved Rachel who's found her purpose and everything and feels complete for the first time. So it's like, yeah, she definitely won't like that. So it was kind of cool seeing Alison stand up to her, and Rachel's like, oh, I just kind of want to strangle you right now. Alison's like, oh, I guess we're not that different. Kind of want to do the same thing to you. And interesting enough, she admitted, she's like, oh yeah, this actually was their first face-to-face, wasn't it? I'm trying to remember. Cosima met Rachel, right? Or is Sarah the only one that's ever met Rachel? Like amongst the leaders, at least amongst them, you know? Because all this was also based around the fact is that, like MK's death and everything too. It's like I said, like it hits them hard because they like amongst the ones that they've known, kind of got to know, like they've never lost a leader. Like I said, the only other one, I mean, no, this is the second time it's happened, but it's like in Allison's case, it hits her even harder because she feels like she could have done something more. She felt useless. So I'm sure she probably felt the same way during the whole Beth situation. So like, but this is like the first time like one of them's been killed like that. At least I'd say amongst them. So it does seem like Rachel is backing down. What I also appreciate about this situation too is like Sarah ended up talking to Art and everything, and she is explaining everything. And Art's like, I can't keep doing this, like, because basically I'm sticking my neck out here. I'm in the middle of all of this because of you guys and everything. Not trying to necessarily blame them, but he's like, the fact that like Sarah's like, this isn't going to come back on you. The people down there is a Castor clone in Leaky's body. But when like Maddie was down there answering the phone, you saw freaking Art having a gun to like Maddie's head. I'm like, dude. And, if you remember, like, Beth did a similar thing to Paul because, I mean, that was a different situation. Like, no matter what the circumstances is, like, Art is in this for Beth's sake, too, because it's like he wasn't there for his partner, the person that he deeply cared for when she needed him. And the least he could do is be there for her sisters. And it's like he's come to like Sarah and care for her and the other leaders, and he's not going to let them kind of get dragged down by Maddie. So he's going to pull the trigger on her. But like the moment Rachel called it off, it's like, okay. I was like, I hope he doesn't pull the trigger before this gets called off. So, but man, that shows you like Art's commitment to this whole situation. It may not be the most favorable situation, but he does care about the leaders and he is going to look out for them like that. So crazy. I was not expecting that, dude, because Art's still working on the inside. He's being forced because at the same time it's like not only himself in danger, but more so than anything his daughter and stuff like that. Plus he can be a little more helpful with the group if he's on the inside, but at the same time it's like they got a close eye on him. In particular Maddie does. So they're going to be disposing of the bodies. Kind of interesting. She was going to plant evidence on them anyway, just to kind of it's like, I mean, the fact that she's part of Neolution and everything, obviously she's like hardcore believer and everything. So, but a part of me also, I mean, at least with what was his name? God, I mentioned him like an episode or two ago. It's the cop, the one who actually killed Kendall. That dude, the one that Siobhan ended up getting revenge against. Him, like, he says that basically he was kind of forced in this situation. And if, like I said, but it made me question that because of the way he kind of took joy in manipulating and kind of being basically an asshole. And it seems like Maddie kind of enjoys what she does. So I think there's some like, true like Neolutionist belief there. So at least that's where I'm saying. I feel like at this point we're dealing with the hardcore fanatics. Obviously prior to this we've dealt with the more lighthearted people. Like I said, he wouldn't claim he was like being forced in this whole situation. What was it about his niece or whatever? So I'm wondering, is she being forced? But I really don't think so. I think she's in this for herself. So sadly, Alison is like, okay, I need to take a break from all of this. I need to take a step back, figure out where the hell I fit in all of this, like find out what my life is like outside of this. I need to kind of find my center, be me again. So she's going away for a while, which is sad. But I mean, at the same time, it's like Alison needs time to figure herself out because I mean, like I say, it's hit everyone in the leaders in very different ways. They've lost and gained so much. So it comes like this whole situation comes with the good and obviously comes with the extremely bad. So it's just like Alison's time to kind of figure herself out. So another thing in this episode is the fact is that, Rachel is talking to Kira and kind of alludes to the fact of the matter is there's a particular rat. It's like, oh yeah, this species of rat, we don't know how it really works, but basically it can shed its skin and its fur at any point in time and kind of grow it back. So basically kind of gets Kira thinking like, because like Mrs. S is asking like, oh, what'd you guys talk about? And she's like not answering. Because to her, she's like, yeah, everyone's saying I shouldn't trust you. And then, that's what Kira's saying to Rachel. And then Rachel's like, oh, what do you think? And she doesn't really give an answer. And I think in all honesty, she's still in the middle of it. I think more so than anything, Kira's curiosity of who or what she is what pushes that. But I think it's at the same time, it's like, oh yeah, like all the other aunties aren't bad. Like none of you guys are bad. It's like you just doing what you think is right. And it's like, I can't fault you for that. But it's like at the same time Rachel's done a lot of deplorable stuff. She tried to take, like, the thing is she's tried to take you from your mom, but at the same time it's like, I guess like in Kira's mind also, it's like, well, my mom's kind of done some shady stuff in the past. Like even before this whole clone situation, she wasn't always the best mom. So it's like I gave her, she's got her second chance, and why not give Rachel hers? It's kind of how I'm kind of alluding to it. But even then, it's like, let's not forget, like the most recent bad thing she did. I mean, beside this, trying to like deal with the whole trying to force the hand of the Hendersons to find out where Helena is. Interestingly enough, it looks like she's at a convent, which is like, it kind of makes sense. At the same time, it's kind of like, well, it kind of doesn't, because it's like, you would understand, because that's kind of where she grew up and everything, so of course she'd fit more at home, but at the same time, it's like, considering her whole upbringing with Tomasa and everything, you would think that she would hate being at one, but then again, I guess it's like, different circumstances and different people. Some people are more welcoming than others. Maybe it's something like she's set up in, like, in between times of seasons and stuff, like, I don't know. But there's also an interesting thing where it seemed like Kira ended up getting a blade. Immediately, my brain is going, okay, so she's trying to test this out herself. She might be pulling a Claire from Heroes. And if you're unfamiliar by the reference, Claire basically cut off one of her, like, because she has a regenerative ability, she cuts off her small pinky toe and it ends up growing back, kind of testing what her power is really capable of. So I'm getting a feeling like Kira's going to do the same. Granted, whether she's going to do a toe or finger, thumb, whatever the case may be, seems like she's going to do that, so I don't know. It does seem like she still has some animosity towards her mom, but at the end she is asking like, oh, mom's supposed to be here, right? So she has her problems with her and everything, but it's still like, she still loves her and everything. It's a very complicated situation, an extremely complicated situation. But it's definitely a very, very good episode. Like I said, this is obviously still setting up people's stories to kind of play out the way they do. We still haven't found out what the hell Delphine came to Mrs. S about, so hopefully that's something we kind of find out soon enough. But man, you feel bad for Sarah, man. Like waiting and just having to wait, just play like onlooker in this whole situation as Rachel does what she wants, and like with your daughter, and it's like at the same time your daughter's looking at her like she's not the bad guy when in fact she is in this whole grand scheme of things. But like I said, we would just have to wait and see. Like the point I was making earlier is like the fact is we're seeing storylines kind of like closing in, like we see in the Hendersons, kind of like it's already out there in the open, so there's no like coming after the Hendersons anymore, and like Alison trying to figure herself out and everything. So it seems like we are getting to that point where stories are not necessarily wrapping up, but it is kind of like, like things are kind of tightening in. So, and we still got like quite a bit of the season left, so it's not like we haven't even hit the halfway mark yet. So you know what I'm saying. So, like I said, very good episode, and I'm very interested to see what goes out in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.